Continue. Pardon me? Continue with agenda item number 18. Consideration of amendment to the employment agreement with Chief of Police, Mr. Flora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as the council is aware, we've been implementing a new finance and payroll system for some time, which has been an extremely significant task. During much of this time, we have not had a full-time finance director, and we've been relying on shifting a number of duties within the existing staff and using a few consultants to cover the workload. But I think all of you are aware about how talented Chief White is, and due to his background in programming and some system implementation, became increasingly involved in this process and really has been invaluable in making sure that the project has been completed. Well, it's not completed yet, but it's going successfully. And so through that process, though, it became apparent the level of review required in implementing new systems and reviewing everything, that there was a need for some additional effort and attention to the process, finance policies, a whole number of things. And so we've been not particularly successful in our finance director recruitment, and we talked internally and feel like that through this process, Chief White has gained such a unique and intimate knowledge with everything that's going on that it might be helpful to just have him continue for a period of time in completing this. As time goes on, I'm not sure that he's happy that he agreed with this idea, but he's doing a great job of it in providing leadership and mentorship to the staff that we do have. So I'm recommending that the council approve an amendment to his current employment agreement that essentially results in paying him for like an additional 10 hours of time per week over the next well, it's designed to be up to 6 months. Hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of this stuff cleaned up and implemented and be successful in our finance director recruitment because we feel like, you know, Chief White's also a pretty good police chief, and it's great to have him focus on that. But we appreciate his willingness to do this, but it has taken a lot more of his time than we had initially thought, and I think it's only fair that he be compensated for that. So I'd be happy to address any questions that you have about the proposed amendment.
All right, Vice Mayor Slotin, you have a question?
No, I think, no, not, oh, sorry, no, I didn't. That's from before, sorry.
Councilmember Overton, do you have a question?
No, I do not. I think I appreciate that the chief is willing to do this, so, to get us through this, so.
Councilmember Purdock, do you have a question?
Kind of along the lines of Councilmember Overton, just this is a common practice in cities that when you have to share the load, that they receive additional pay. So I'm all for it.
All right, I'll open this to public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any comments, questions? And we don't have much of a public here, so seeing no public comments, I'll bring it back to council for action. Any comments? Any? Okay, well, I guess I will comment too. Chief White, you do a tremendous job, and we appreciate the efforts what you're doing in the finance director's department now has been great for the city, and I think you're worth every penny of what you agreed to take for this extra task. So I'm all for it as well.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize city manager to sign amendment number 1 to the employment agreement with Chief of Police.
Motion has been made by Council Member Purdock and seconded
I'll second it.
by Vice Mayor Slotin. Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call?
Councilmember Purdock?
Aye.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sluten,
Aye.
Mayor Kramer.
Aye. Motion passes. That was an easy one. And we're down to number
Last page.
19. Consideration of response to the Lake County Civil Grand Jury Report on tax default auctions. Mr. City Manager, did you want to present this?
Actually, City Clerk Swanson's going to present. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
She's like, what? Like, what?
Did you see that look she gave me?
Even under the face mask.
Okay, so obviously the council's aware that we've been having a lot of discussions about what we feel is a lack of regular and adequate tax auctions in Lake County for quite some time. And then a couple of weeks ago, we received a report from the grand jury that they prepared on tax default auctions as part of this year's civil grand jury report. The grand jury has required that the city council respond within 90 days as that's set up. But when staff and members of the council reviewed the report, felt like that the level of inaccuracy in the report was at such a high level that it was necessary to provide a response as soon as possible and make sure that the public has adequate information around this issue. And so, well, before we talk any more about that, I would comment that the grand jury is also required that the city council respond to their report around public safety power shutoffs, but you know, that would come back at a later time within the 90-day period. So the staff has been working with the mayor and vice mayor over the last several days in trying to prepare a response to the grand jury's report. I don't know what level of detail you want me to go into this, but I would just say that there was only one recommendation in the report that the grand jury required that the city council respond to. However, what we all feel like, I think, is a level of inaccuracy in the report. The decision was made to try and respond essentially to each section. So this response includes addressing the discussion and analysis section, all of the findings and all of the recommendations, even though the city council wasn't required to address each of those. So it's quite lengthy. We feel like that we've been able to work together to provide a lot of information both to the grand jury and to the public. You know, there's a lot of apparent concern about the accuracy of the information that the city had used to base our claims on that have been shared in a number of avenues. And I think it's important to note that all of the information that the city used to base that on came directly from the county, some of which came directly from the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, but all of it came directly from the county system, and we have no reason at this time to doubt any of that data.
We put that data on.
Oh yeah, that was the last thing I was going to mention, that we did go ahead and, you know, because of this report, decide that, you know, let's just share the information that we have. So I mean, because of the level of this problem, there's, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of data that's in, you know, Excel spreadsheets, but we have taken that raw data that we received from the county and made that available to the public on our website, so you can go on there. There's a news article. You can also click in one of the main sections under tax default and find all these files and look for yourself and judge whether you feel like the information is accurate. So with that kind of just brief overview, I could try and address some questions the council members may have. I know that the mayor and vice mayor are also well-versed in all this as well, and may want to make some comments or address questions as well. But that's my report.
I felt that we had no choice but to give this long, very detailed response to the grand jury's report. As the grand jury's report, quite honestly, there's so many inaccuracies in it and lack of support and just plain wrong information that I didn't feel we had any choice but to respond this strongly. The letter that's available for anybody to read. Vice Mayor Slotin?
I concur. I mean, the information that was in the grand jury is mostly inadequate and not very well thought out. This response, even though it's a very lengthy one, addresses all the issues that the grand jury brought up and rectify it with the actual information is that we believe that we got directly from the county. So there's no doubt in my mind that our data is correct. So I'm glad we're doing this. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Slotin. Are there comments from Councilmember Purdock, Councilmember Overton?
I'm just, I mean, I agree with what you guys, what you put together here. I mean, making sure that the correct information is out there is very important, because when a grand jury report goes out, a lot of people don't realize they're not like other grand juries, you know, in bigger areas, but it's still important that the people understand, you know, that our information came directly where it did, and I think you did a great job. Lengthy, but if anybody wants to read it, I think it was very good education, so thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add one thing to it, I mean, I went over this line by line by line, and I think I support this response.
I'm going to open this up for public comment.
No public comment.
No public comment. So I'll bring this back to council for action.
I move that we approve the response from the Clearlake City Council to the Lake County Civil Grand Jury regarding tax default auctions.
Motion has been made by Vice Mayor Slotin and seconded by Councilmember Purdock. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Councilmember Purdock,
Aye.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Slutin,
Aye.
Mayor Kramer.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, that's the last item. So we'll now move on to public reports. Mr. City Manager, do we have your report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a few quick items. Fortunately, a number of them are related to additional funding. So we talked about the CARES Act CDBG funding earlier, and the council gave direction on that. There was some additional CARES Act funding that was allocated on a per capita basis to cities recently. The city should be receiving around $177,000 for that. So these are, you know, COVID-related expenses. We just had a webinar this week on what's eligible for that. Looks like there's, you know, a variety of things that can be covered. The state's going to be sending us 1/6 of that amount here in the next few weeks, and then there's sort of like a reporting process that we have to do. You know, showing whether it's reimbursing something or whatever equipment or whatever we purchased to deal with the pandemic, and then the Department of Finance will kind of verify that, and then they give us another 1/6 and so forth. But we feel pretty good that we'll certainly be able to take advantage of each dollar of that funding that's been provided. There are a little bit of discussions about sort of revenue loss funding, but at this point, we haven't seen any significant movement on anything like that coming down to us. This is something that we've talked about quite a long time ago, and we did never get any response on until today. There's a some parks funding that was a per capita grant that was supposed to come down to us, and use some of it on Austin Park. Hopefully, we still can offset some of the costs there. It was one of those deals that we love about how the state allocates money to us sometimes, where it was a minimum of 200,000 to each entity, but then based on population, so you could go up from there. I still haven't quite figured out how this happened, but our allocation was 177,000. So we didn't quite meet the minimum, but this is the same amount they allocated to basically all the small cities in the state. I mentioned the community center grant earlier. That final agreement came through today. We're actively working on the cannabis equity grant that was before the council a month or so ago, and should be getting some proposals together on that soon. And then also starting to work on a downtown revitalization plan. We received some SB1, SB2 grant funding for that, and so we'll be working on that over the next several months, and hoping to have a sort of community meeting about that project, so the community come provide input on what they want to see in sort of a revitalized downtown here. We're kind of doing some prep work right now in anticipation of a time where we can be open enough to be able to do it in a meaningful way rather than try to organize it virtually. If this continues for a long period of time, we might try to do that, but we're hoping in September, October, we'll be able to have that type of meeting. So that'll be, I think, a really great project. I also mentioned earlier the zoning ordinance is out for review now. We'll be going to the Planning Commission on July 28th. We'll see how much time the Planning Commission wants to spend with it, and then, of course, it'll be coming to the council for final action. On grants, this is something that's came up. A couple of council members have mentioned this to us. I've reached out over the past couple of weeks to a contractor that does sort of grant management services and would continually research what grants are available, meet with staff, and prioritize different projects that we would like to have funding for in the council as well. And so hoping to get a proposal on that before too long and see what that looks like. We did the proclamation for July 4th. I think it went really well. It was one of the best fireworks shows I've seen. I think we were the beneficiary of a lot of other communities actually canceling their fireworks at the last minute. So appreciate all the staff time that went into that, particularly the police department did a lot of work, and I think it went really well. I know that Dr. Pace was pretty pleased with how it went. You know, he was real nervous about how this was going to work and whether people were going to kind of follow the rules and if there was going to be a big crowd and whatnot, but pleased with how that went. We did have a community meeting regarding the proposed public works yard location on Pond Road. So, you know, we talked to the council about this a while back. That was brought up as an option. We've been working at the staff level on kind of defining what that might look like. There was some concern with some members in the community out there. A couple of, well, Mr. Goodman, our city engineer, and myself met with a few of them a month or so ago and talked about some of the concerns, and they recommended that we have a, you know, kind of a larger meeting. So we did that this week. Invited the mayor and vice mayor to participate in that, but I'd say we probably had 20 or 25 people there talking about the things that they were concerned about with the project. And so we're going to continue working on that. We're looking at a couple of other sites that we think may work in the city. It's pretty limited, really, when you start looking around, but we'll be bringing that back at some point with all the activity going on, which I believe to move in a real positive direction over the next year at the airport property. We really need to get things relocated, and now, you know, we have so much public works equipment, all the stuff going on with the animal shelters, like extremely tight in that space that we have available. So we need to get that going. And then the final thing is just 3 members of the city council are up for election, and so the candidate filing agreements are available beginning this week, right? And through August 7th. And so I believe if anyone's interested in filing for the council's position, then they should contact our city clerk. And that's my report.
Thank you, City Manager Flora. Councilmember Purdock?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend staff and our city manager. It was a real pleasure to attend the flag raising ceremony and the soft open on July 3rd. I'd like to also thank Park Study Club for a beautiful flag. I love seeing that fly. And also, it's really nice that the fencing's down, including the fencing that had originally been up there. It really opens it up having that gone. It really makes it nice. Thank you. Attended the 4th of July fireworks. I agree. It was a fantastic show. I didn't think about the other communities. Unfortunately, they had to cancel, but hopefully it seems like we did receive maybe a little extra. So that was fun. Had the city or the Clearlake Chamber of Commerce meeting last night. Pretty good meeting, but just the only point I'd like to share is I am very concerned about our small businesses. We spoke with our city or our chamber manager and the president to look at what the California's Chamber is doing to help other small businesses in cities, and maybe we can bring that to some of our businesses here. I saw some pretty, I thought pretty, I won't say genius ideas, but if we could help our restaurants and things like that, maybe by some, I see where they're moving people actually out onto the street for outdoor dining to try to accommodate and keep these businesses open as we go through this flare-up in COVID. Really like to see us support that. And a lot of kudos to some of the cities that were doing that. So I'd encourage our staff to do that. I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't able to attend the AVA meeting yesterday. I had a scheduling conflict and priority was to be at work. So apologize for that, and I'll reach out to them and see if I can get a little further notice so I can get on my calendar.
Mr. Mayor, while I'm thinking about it, could I address one of Councilmember Purdock's comments?
You may.
So this was something I actually intended to mention with things kind of tightening back down a little bit again, especially with the restaurants. Under the emergency declaration that we did, I did issue an order, I guess, maybe a month and a half ago now, that we would accept applications for businesses that wanted to use outdoor space and things, whether it was for dining or other things, to be able to operate outside and keep things going with some of the restrictions in place, and that would be at no cost to the business. And so that sort of program is still in effect. So if you are talking to any business owners that are struggling with maybe how they can do that, please encourage them to come and talk to us.
Thank you.
And we'd be happy to work with them and do what we can. One example, you can't do a lot of outdoor dining because you have to have the parking lot for your parking requirements. Well, that's something under this situation that we can waive and let them do that if they wanted to try and accommodate. So,
Have you had any that have asked?
we have not had any applications at this point. I know there's been a couple in other areas of the county, but we haven't had any thus far. So,
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Overton?
I don't have a lot. Pretty much reiterate what Councilmember Purdock has said about the flag raising. That was great. Sad that we couldn't have more people there. But I would also like to see some kind of a presentation of thanks to the Park Study Club for that. If we can get that done at some point in time, I'd appreciate it. And the fireworks were great. I watched them from my house. I didn't want to come. That's why I bought that house, was just for that, to have that view. So they were great, but I did have other people that came up and kind of hung out and said it was they really enjoyed that that we actually did that. So I think our community was very thankful that we did that. So I really want to thank the Lions Club for actually figuring out a way to make that happen, and the city for working with them. And that's really all I have to report, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Vice Mayor Slotin?
I also attended the flag raising. Again, Park Study Club yearly contribution is always amazing. I saw the fireworks from the deck of our former city manager, but there was an added full moon right behind there. It was awesome. It was just awesome. I went to Pond Road and talked to the neighbors over there. They have some legitimate concerns, but I also got some comments that at the same time, we still, at a certain point, we have to compromise. So if that's what eventually we're going to go, I attended the LAFCO meeting yesterday, and we reviewed the MSR on Counc Water District. They've been very helpful in giving all the documentation, but it's the only water district that has able to supply us with some additional information at this point. And my big concern that was raised during the LAFCO meeting, and I believe some additional meetings will be part of this, or to find out exactly how the fire flow in fire hydrant locations throughout the city is painfully inadequate. So it's a big concern of mine, particularly if you look in certain areas of the city. It's downright scary. So that's my report.
Brings up a question. How is the project over on Mullins Pearl between Highlands Water and the road, street?
Well, the water line's all in and done. Our contractor's working on the project. We've had a few slow ups due to some cultural resources in the area, but I think for the most, there's a few things we still have to address. We've had to redesign a couple elements of the project, but it's still moving forward.
Thank you. I also, I think the entire council was actually at the flag raising, and it was a great affair. And I also extend my thanks to Park Study Club, and I do think we should recognize them in chambers here in the future meeting. The fireworks were fantastic. I had a front row seat over here, and I was able to, with the help of Chief White, and was able to get the big light that was shining right down on our eyes off so we could all see him well. But it was a fantastic show. Had comments from people that saw the fireworks for the first time from other areas where they see big fireworks shows like in Sacramento or the Bay Area, and they were very complimentary about this fireworks show. Thought it was one of the best that they'd seen. Their comments surprised me, knowing where they come from. We had, most of my meetings were canceled this week, or this month. Lake Links, however, we had our board meeting, and our new CEO and overall manager, Clarissa Kinsey, is now in place. I think that she met Councilmember Overton already, and I would encourage each of you to stop in and introduce yourself. She's already starting to do great things, looking for different and more ways that Lake Links can help to support the seniors and in the community with transportation. Our storage building is done, and I think it was actually pretty close to done last meeting, but additionally, we have our sewer and our water hooked up, hard connected. The only thing we have left is to pull a wiring, but if we need it, we can always run an extension cord. The sewer was the big thing, and the water. So I'm really happy to see that done. We've got a huge wall for Councilmember Overton to find people to do murals on. 45 by 16 feet. And we're going to have multiple murals, I hear. Pond Road, I was at that meeting as well. I do believe that there's room to mitigate a lot of the concerns that the folks out there had by perhaps moving things around a little bit, maybe planting trees to to help so they don't see some of the buildings. And I think the architecture of the building will be such that won't feel quite so badly about it. But we do need, I agree with our city manager, Flora, that we have got to go ahead and get that corporation yard moved. So hopefully we'll come to a quick agreement and plan and move forward quickly on this. That's all I have. I knew we'd have a
In our
do-over.
tradition, I have to have a do-over. And I don't want to put Chief White on the spot, but if you'd like to comment, be welcome to. On the 4th of July, I was really concerned. I saw a lot of illegal fireworks being set off around the lake and from various spots of the city. I just want to thank your staff. Thankfully, I don't think we had any fires, big ones anyway, within city limits. But all around the lake, I saw a lot of illegal fireworks going on before and after the fireworks show. And I know that those that I was able to identify seem to be from vacation homes. So just with our past history of wildfires, it was very concerning. I was just waiting for the big one to start. The conditions were right. Thankfully, that didn't happen. So to all of our first responders, thank you for keeping us safe on the 4th of July. Hats off to you.
Yeah, I actually was parked next to Chief Cepeda, and he left twice during the show. And I agree. I think I heard more fireworks going off after the fireworks show, and maybe even, they went off all night. So we probably dodged a bullet on them.
So I don't know how we could correct that, but doggone it, it was really concerning, real stressful.
Okay, any other comments? No. Future agenda items. We have any that want to be suggested?
Not at this time, maybe next week, next time.
Okay, well, seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:10.